OER Overview from the Department of Online Learning. What is OER? OER stands for Open Educational Resources. These resources offer equitable access to knowledge and education. To be considered open, it has to follow the 5 R's: retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. You can adopt, adapt, create, or combine OER materials. Before we get started on OER, it's good to know the difference between free and open materials. So what is the difference between free resources and open resources? With free materials, you can access them, but you cannot remix or revise them. With open materials, you can access, retain, reuse, remix, and revise the materials. So while you can use free materials, it will not be considered open because you cannot remix or revise them. The cost of textbooks is one of the reasons why OERs are so important. In 2021, the average cost of textbooks and supplies for a 4-year school was $1,240. At a 2-year public school, it was on average $1,420. The graph to the left shows that the average cost of a textbook over the years, with the peak being at $110 per book on average, although the number has declined in recent years, down to $84 on average for a book. You normally have 3 to 5 courses, so that cost can add up for each student. So why is that cost important? When possible, the data found that 66% of students will avoid buying course materials due to the steep prices. 25% of students worked extra hours to pay for their books and materials, with 11% skipping meals to afford books and materials. And in 2020, they found that 19% of students indicated that the cost of the materials and books directly influenced their decision on which classes to take. This graph shows the average cost of books and supplies by year and the type of institution. So again, it's in that $1,200 range. So it's important to use OERs because they're free to the student, so the cost of textbooks would be eliminated, as well as alleviate the stress that some of the data suggests for students. So the University of Georgia did a study that investigated the impact of OERs on various student success metrics. They compared the final grades of students enrolled in 8 large undergraduate courses between 2010 and 2016. In each of these courses, the professor switched from a commercial textbook costing $100 or more to a free digital textbook or an OER at some point during the 6-year period. Some key points in this study were that they found that switching to OERs increased the number of A and A- grades. They also found that the number of students who withdrew or were awarded D or F grades fell by 2.68%. Watson thought that the main reason for this was because all the students had the materials on the first day of class. As always, there's limitations for the study. So some of these in this study were that the professors received additional support, which likely served as a catalyst to further the instructors' engagement with their own teaching, as well as the professors became more experienced over the 6 years. These 2 things could explain student improvements and academic performance. Some thoughts on open pedagogy were that we should not be using OERs the same way we teach a textbook from a publisher. The article referenced the need for killing the disposable assignment that students complain about doing and faculty complain about grading. Some tips when teaching OERs are to establish trust with your students. Provide a clear description of assignments. You can have them create OER materials with you, as well as examples or topics that they can choose are student topics that in the course students generally struggle with the best being integrated into the course itself. Along with clear descriptions of assignments, provide details on how you're going to grade your work and some examples of high quality work. You can invite students to remix work with peer review and provide constructive feedback on their work. You can also publicly congratulate the students whose tutorials will be integrated into your courses. So what tools can you use to make OERs? You can start with the notes from a class you have been teaching already. You can use tools that you're already familiar with, like Google, Microsoft Office, Canvas, and Canvas Studio. Or you can use the Open Author tool that is found on the OER Commons website. Accessibility is something we have to consider when creating any course, not just OERs. PDFs are the most popular, but they can be the least accessible for a couple reasons. If it's a scanned document, the PDF considers this a picture, and screen recorders will be unable to read it. If a document is done by print to PDF, the headings, alt text, and other tag structures are not preserved. It's also hard to create alt tags and list tags for screen readers to pick up on. Some positives of OER in relation to accessibility are that the permissions remove legal barriers when customizing OERs, so it's possible to create learning environments that are more flexible and robust for all students. You can also use real-world examples from your state or hometown. You can share materials with diverse mindsets, not just a specific group in college who can afford the materials. And it is more common for OER to be shared in formats that can be adapted for accessibility, unlike publisher content where editable files are hard to obtain. One of the main things when dealing with OERs is copyright issues. The most commonly used license for OERs is the Creative Commons license, or CC. Creative Commons shows what you can do with each open material through icons. Some Creative Commons require you to use attributions when using others' works. When using an attribute, you include the title, author, license, and the source. Fair use permits the unlicensed use of copyright-protected work in certain circumstances. When trying to figure out if it falls under fair use, there are 4 factors: purpose, nature, amount, and effect. Generally speaking, linking out to content is a good way to get around sharing copyrighted material in courses. So for the duration of the OER development, we ask that you use a tracker when gathering your resources. The template should include the title of the source, link to the source, license for the source, and other notes. To get a quick copy of the template in Google Sheets, you can click on the Here link in the PDF version of this deck. There are 4 Creative Commons license terms that make up the 7 types of Creative Commons license that will be discussed on the next slide. First is the attribution required, or the BY license. Credit must be given to the creator through an attribution. Next is the non-commercial NC. Only non-commercial use of your work is permitted. Modifying not allowed, or ND, no derivatives, or adaptations of the work are permitted. And last is distribute it on same terms or SA. Adaptations must be shared under the same terms. There are 7 types of Creative Commons licenses made up by those 4 terms that were on the previous slide. The first is CCO, which is a creator is giving up their copyright and allowing users to distribute, remix, adapt, or build upon the material in any medium or format and for commercial purposes. This is the lowest one, and it does not include any of the terms. Next is CC BY. This license requires users to give credit to the creator. Reusers can distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material in any medium or format and for commercial purposes. Then we have CC BY SA. This requires reusers to give credit to the creator and allows them to distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material in any medium or format for commercial purposes. If others remix, adapt, or build upon, they must license the modified material under identical terms. CC BY ND. Reusers are required to give credit to the creator. It allows reusers to copy and distribute the material in any medium or format in unadapted form only, even for commercial purposes. CC BY NC. Reusers are required to give credit to the creator. Reusers can distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material in any medium or format for non-commercial purposes only. CC BY NC SA. Reusers are required to give credit to the creator. Reusers can distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material in any format or medium for non-commercial purposes only. If others modify or adapt the material, they must license the modified material under identical terms. And then last is CC BY NC and D. Reusers give credit to the creator. Reusers can copy and distribute the material in any medium or format in an unadapted form and for non-commercial purposes only. So now that you know the licenses, how do you make a CC license? So you can start by going to the CC license chooser at this link below, again clickable from the PDF of this deck. Fill out the questions to choose which license you need from the 7, or choose if you know the one that you need already. Fill out your attribution details. Next, it will give you rich text, HTML, or XMP for you to use in your materials. So lastly, after you have your license, you can put in your materials on the front page of your work, or you can continue it throughout as a header or footer. So there's 3 types of barriers to implementing OER. The first is lack of awareness of OER and OER materials and resources. The second is lack of ancillary materials, or things like test banks, quizzes, slides, and lesson plans. And the last is the time investment that it takes to develop an OER course. We hope that helping everyone by promoting awareness of the OERs, helping find resources and ancillary materials, as well as creating new ones and supporting in the development of our OER courses will help with those 3 barriers. For innovation to be adopted, Rogers states that the innovation must have the following. Relative advantage. People must easily see or understand why it is better than what they are currently doing or using. So messages about how tuition has been rising and how much textbooks cost may be a direction to show the relative advantage of OER. Compatibility. How compatible is the innovation to the culture of the campus? For example, faculty value quality material. Are the OERs quality? Complexity. How complex or difficult are they to find, to use, etc. Trialability. Can you try it out, see if you like it? Observability. Can you see the effects it has in the students? Last, here are some good resources to get you started. You can click on the links from the PDF version of this deck.